So today we're going to look at question words in Spanish. This was sticky for us on the exam. So we're going to look at what they mean, how to identify them, and how to use them. And we have a whole lot of these words in Spanish. What you're going to notice is every time they're used as a question, the word has an accent. And this is very, very important, right? And I broke my own rule down here. Qual, qual, quien. All of these, when they're used in a question, they always, 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 always have an accent. Ooh, sorry for being a little bit sloppy there. Okay. So first we have the word que, which means what? Muy bien. So a typical question might be ¿qué hora es? Remember? Question marks before and after, and an answer might be son las nueve. ¿Qué hora es means what? Let me get I don't know if this will work, but uh, actually let me use the colorful one again. So what time is it? So almost word for word, it corresponds with English, pretty much word for word. ¿Dónde means where? So might have a question like, ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? ¿De dónde? I'm going to break these out now, just so I have them. I should have wrote them out before I started recording. Sorry for the silence here. I would hum, but I'm not very good at singing, so. Okay, so here we go. So where? ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? So almost word for word with English. ¿Dónde? Where is the library? So you'll know to use ¿dónde if you have something that is a location, right? If I say NCSG, in CSG, you're thinking that's a location, so I'll use that. But we also have three different forms of ¿dónde? We also have de dónde and a dónde. You're thinking, how do I know what to use? Well, de donde, from where, a donde, to where. You'll know what to use based on the answer. If you see de in the answer, you should be using de donde. If you see a in the answer, you should be using a donde. Where? From where are you? I am from Canada. To where are you going? I am going to the library, right? Como means how. And a typical question for that is ¿Cómo estás? Which we learned way back in probably in August, I think. So there, if you're figuring out if should it be como, the answer should be like bien, mal, así, así, cansado, etc. Something like that. ¿Por qué means why. ¿Por qué comes? Why do you eat, right? And you'll know to use that because in the answer, you'll usually see the word por qué without an accent, one word, which means because. And then down below, we have when. And on the quiz, I put cuando es tu cumpleaños. And you may not know what cumpleaños is, but if the answer is a date, you're probably going to use cuando because cuando means when, right? And I saved these ones for last down here because they have different forms. Sometimes that's confusing. So which, cuál. Cuál is used, I'm not going to say interchangeably with que in Spanish because it's not interchangeably, but many times in English when we say what, we actually use cuál in Spanish, and we'll figure that out as we go. We don't need to know all the cases right now. So a typical question might be, ¿Cuál es tu color favorito? Which is your favorite color, right? That's cuál. So how do you know to use cuáles? ¿Cuáles son tus clases favoritas? So pause the video right now, and I want you to see if you can figure out why we're using cuál in one and why we're using cuáles in the other. Okay, so we're using cuáles in this one because what comes after it is plural. We're using cuál here because what comes after it is singular. So it's only two forms, singular and a plural form. Down here, quién means who. So if I write quién, ask you the question, ¿Quién es Jillian? Who is Jillian? We all know Jillian, she's a student at CSG, right? We also have ¿Quiénes son? Ooh, Jillian let's go with Bryn. So pause the video now if you can figure out why I'm using quién in one, why I'm using quiénes in the other. So I'm using quién here because this is singular. I'm using quiénes because this, what comes after it, is plural, right? Just like we saw with Gustav, we have to look at what comes after it to determine if it's singular or plural. Cuánto has a whole lot of forms. How much or how many? So for example, ooh, that didn't come out very nice. Let's try this again. ¿Cuántos or cuántas estudiantes hay? So here we're using cuántas because we have plural for estudiantes, and if we're in CSG, all the students are female, so it has to be the female plural, the feminine plural form, cuántas estudiantes hay. And I want to point out I here, which we went over in class. I is very useful in Spanish. It means there is, there are. There are no different forms. It's just I, not hey. Horses eat hay. I, like a pirate, right? Como pirata. Um, and it's super useful in Spanish because we respond to this by saying hay 28 estudiantes. There are 28 students. Um, so normally if you have an answer that talks about a number, a quantity of something, you know it's got to be a form of cuánto or cuántas or whatever. You have to make sure it agrees with the thing that is being counted. So normally that means you're going to be down here because normally if we're counting things, it's going to be plural, obviously. If I ask you how many students are there, right, that's necessarily plural. I wouldn't ask you, for example, how many pen is there? That doesn't make grammatical sense, and it doesn't make grammatical sense in English. I might ask how much time is left. ¿Cuánto tiempo? That'd be a way you use the singular, but you're more than likely going to be using the plurals here, just because that's the way language works. I really hope this helped.